Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce for today's episode 23 of the show. We're coming down the stretch here in the fall sports season. We're going to talk a lot of regional tournament and also review the district tournament, which is pretty much wrapped up for both volleyball, soccer, and I think we're going to talk a little cross country.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk some cross country, Bob.
And then we're actually going to squeeze in football on today's episode. As we're starting to lose a bit of content as the best teams that we have to offer are starting to move on to represent us on the regional stage, and then obviously football moving on to week 12. So pretty much everything we have to offer in the Southern Ohio Sports Authority coverage area coming right here in this episode.
Yeah, we're down to one episode probably for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll start getting ready for the winter season. But at the same time, we still got a lot of teams left. We got some pretty much Fairfield Union and Marietta playing each other a lot, and the nice little rivalry coming up with them. And then we'll get into football this week as well. So it should be a really fun week. Maybe we get to see some teams make it to the state level. I think we got a good chance in volleyball. Obviously in cross country, we already have a couple that are going to be there, and maybe we can get one or two in soccer too. So it'd be, we'll see from how they do this week.
Yep. So we'll start with volleyball, and at least for our coverage area, the only teams remaining are in Division 3. No teams left in Division 2 or 4. So for the Division 3 tournament, we had all 3 games over at Waverly. That was on Saturday. It was a triple header. The first game was originally scheduled for 11, but they all got pushed back an hour, which really for me helped out a little bit, especially coming back from
getting those donuts.
Gallia. Well, that and coming back from Gallia the night before. I don't think I rolled in until about 11:45 or something like that. So it was a far drive down to Gallia. But the first game on the slate was Adena and Wheelersburg. This was a game that Adena more or less dominated the entire match. They ended up winning in straight sets 3-0. For Wheelersburg, it was not only their first non-league loss, but their first non-South Webster loss on the season, who we actually saw a little bit later on. Wins by 25-20, 6 and 22.
25-6
for the Warriors. A dominant second set win. Really, the first and third sets were relatively competitive, but that second set really got away from them. And like I said, they were eventually able to win in straight sets. Adena, now 18-7, will take on South Webster in a regional semifinal at Logan, which we'll talk about here and talk about a little more here in a couple minutes when we get down to South Webster. But it's a rematch of a rematch of Adena's first game of the season. Then I think it was South Webster's third match of the season, and that was one that South Webster took 3-2. And I think were you there for that one? That was a game that Adena led 2-0 after the first 2 sets, and South Webster came back. And if I remember correctly, I think that match is the only 5-setter for South Webster outside of the Notre. I think they went 5 sets with Notre Dame as well. But those are the only 2 times that South Webster has been pushed to 5 sets. So it should be a fun matchup at Logan this Thursday. I think that is the later game on the slate. And then for Wheelersburg, Yin 21-3, so a great overall record. Now, the one thing for Wheelersburg I will say is that they had literally 0 seniors on their team, so they have everybody coming back. They made it to the district final with no seniors. You're only going to get a year older, right? And who knows what they have coming up from middle school, so they could add on a piece or two. So I can't remember the number, but I know in the preseason it was like they had 6 players with 80-plus sets, and none of them were not. They were all seniors, so they had a lot of I don't want to say inexperience, but they didn't have a whole lot of experience coming back.
Yeah, and so they're pretty much filling in new roles. Right. So if they were experienced, they probably weren't playing as much into the roles they played this year. So this was just a really good, like some of these schools do rebuild, they just reload. So their rebuilding year is 21-3, and they get to the district final.
Down year is a district runner-up.
Yeah, so I think we'll definitely be talking about them a good bit next year. More than likely as a regional favorite, I would think.
Yep. Then the second game on the slate was, at least for me,
Crazy.
Probably the most competitive volleyball game I think I've ever seen in my life. Nelsonville takes it in 5 sets, 3-2 over Southeastern, and similar to the Webster and Adena game we were just talking about all the way back at the beginning of the season, Southeastern led 2-0 in this match, but just wasn't able to get, I forget what Shane said, but he compared it to how in baseball, getting those last 3 outs is like the hardest.
Yes.
Winning that last set was the hardest thing for Southeastern. They won the first 2 by scores of 26-24 and 25-23. And then the final 3 sets were won by Nelsonville 25-23, 25-23, and 20-18. All 5 sets were decided by 2 points, and the first and 5th sets were extended sets. Yeah. So it was really just a great match, and it couldn't have been any more competitive. It was the first district title for Nelsonville since 2012. They had huge games from Gianna Dixon, Chloe Lehman, and Lexi Warren on the attack, and then Shane said it best. Megan Booth, their setter, just did a great job quarterbacking the whole operation for them. And he even mentioned how Lindsay Spencer, the libero, she might get overshadowed a bit by the other players, but she had a great game as well. And then Nelsonville going to face a team that really Adena and South Webster are pretty familiar with, and Meadowbrook, who's making their 4th straight appearance at the regional level. That is the 5. I forget if it's 6. It's either 5:30 or 6 is the start time for those games at Logan on Thursday. And then for Southeastern, right, you finish the year 19-5. You get a sectional title. You're going to bring back the SVC Player of the Year and Josie Logheed. Now you do lose a couple key pieces with, I think, Ware graduated, and then I think Wills graduated.
Yeah, and
as
she
well.
got her 1,000th assist
during
that
the
match.
game. That was cool. I didn't realize that until it actually happened. But yeah, for Southeastern, I think it might just be a reload type off season for them, and it's similar to how we said earlier. Who knows what they're bringing up through the middle school level, or if anybody comes in the off season. So. Definitely a great season for them overall. Had some big wins.
Yeah, beat Uniota, got they finished 3rd in the SVC, SEC Player of the Year coming back, and another year under Coach Ward. In her first year, they make it to the district final. So, they're set up to, be successful for the long haul with, some good coaching and some really good players as well. So, congrats to Nelsonville. I was at the soccer games, and I was trying to figure out, why isn't Derek giving updates on that last set? And it was because it just kept going. So, yeah, it was definitely an exciting match.
And then the final game of our triple header was South Webster and Meigs. Webster pretty dominant, wins in straight sets. Meigs going on a bit of a Cinderella run up until that district final with South Webster. They had wins. I can't remember if them or Federal Hawking, which one beat Minford and which one beat West. But the district semifinal was the 17 and the 18 seed, and then Meigs moves on. But Webster just too much to handle for the Marauders. And, for South Webster, they remain undefeated 25-0. They're going to get that rematch with Adena that they had in the beginning of the season. Now, this match has a ton of star power on both sides. You start off with the District 14 Player of the Year in Division III with Bella Claxton, and then you add on Addie Claxton, who joins her on the first team. And then for Adena, you have Brinley Preston, who's all-district first team. And even on the second team, you have Skylar Zimmerman for South Webster, and you have Brooke Bossert for Adena, and then Grace Townsend's on third team. And you have Mia Crum and Eva Kruger on honorable mention. So there's just a ton. And there's even some players that maybe didn't get on the all-district teams that are great players and maybe even made all-league teams. I don't know if the SOC2 has released their all leagues, but I know the SVC. Think they have, the SVC released theirs a little bit ago. So just a ton of star power and a lot of players that, if their seniors have the opportunity to play at the next level. We talked about how the older Claxton is going to Mount Vernon once she graduates. So just a ton of great athletes. In total, there's 5 players that were honored on the all-district teams. This will be the late game on Thursday at Logan, and really with Meadowbrook and Nelsonville on the other side, it brings the possibility of either a rematch of last year's regional final with Meadowbrook and Adena if the Warriors are able to win, or a rematch of last year's regional semifinal if Webster were to win. So obviously that would just be one round later than it was last year, but the potential for a regional final, really this game should be great, but I'm interested to see how the winner will do against Meadowbrook in the next round. Assuming Meadowbrook wins, they still got to get past Nelsonville.
Yeah, and they play in a really good league, so it'll have them definitely prepared. But yeah, I don't think I'm covering anything, so I may be taking a ride up there with you guys. Yeah. Should be some really good volleyball on Thursday. And I've heard Logan has redone their gym, which is always...
I don't know what more you could do with that.
Right.
It was
I
pretty
think
solid.
they just updated it a little bit more to get ready for the OCC. And yeah, it's a great facility.
No, I like the lights they have. That's kind of like a weird thing to say you like about a gym, but like I've always liked how the lights are set up above the gym. I don't think we've ever done. I think volleyball is all we've ever done there, but definitely a great place to go, and they've always been really nice to us when we come over to there to stream. So it should be a fun time this Thursday. Once again, that is 6, and then I think it's just a rolling start for the late game.
Very good popcorn.
Very good popcorn.
Very good popcorn.
Maybe we'll have to
they
try
have
it out.
They have kettle corn as well, but they've got a bunch of toppers, like different flavors you can put in, and
the popcorn?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
oh, it's
I
quality.
didn't know
It's
that.
quality popcorn. Yeah,
Did they do it at the gym, or was that
it's at the gym. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they've got like those little shakers you would see at like the movie
like
theater.
seasoning?
Yeah,
kind of?
seasoning stuff, and it's high quality popcorn. Yeah,
right.
one year they gave me a bag of the kettle corn, and I forgot my wallet for a freshman tournament. We were over there, like, hey, know you like this? I was like, oh, this is the best. I love Logan.
All right, so once again, we'll be at Logan, and those will be live streamed. I'm guessing the announcement, well, it may be made by the time this comes out,
Yeah.
considering Tuesday will be 2 days prior. So, but if it's not, and you're tuning into this episode, we'll have both games on live stream. It'll be Shane and I, and maybe you'll even be. Maybe we'll go 3-man and throw on an extra headset. Who knows?
I might pass on that.
Who knows?
I think I just might go enjoy the games and
Eat some popcorn.
eat some popcorn and not get paid. But
Hey,
Yeah.
you might give updates through Twitter.
yeah,
Get paid a little
there's
bit.
no way Brock and Derek aren't going to be there because I don't think there's anything else that night.
On
yeah,
Thursday.
because all the soccer is Tuesday, Wednesday. So
And obviously, since we won't have an episode before the regional final on Saturday, we will have that. Whoever wins, we'll have that on live stream as well. So if you win Thursday, we'll have you on Saturday as well.
yeah.
Hopefully, Nelsonville able to take down
Yeah.
Meadowbrook, and then we'll have guaranteed 2 area teams in the regional final. So a lot of potential there in Division 3. Now, with volleyball out of the way, John, let's go ahead and talk about a little D2, D3 cross country.
Fairfield Union dominated the boys.
Fairfield
race.
Union is dominating.
Like I think it was Tom Wilson from the Lancaster area. He put out something about all the different things they've won so far, and they've just utterly. This has been a great fall sports season for Fairfield Union. Andrew Walton, I feel like these times are wrong because like his time was like a minute and a half faster than any time I've ever seen at the Pickerington race. He ran like a 14 something. Like it's just absurd what he ran on Saturday. Maybe it was a good track too, but it was just crazy. He won by 35 seconds in the boys race. Nathan Phillips, AJ Ray, and Christian Rendell also all finished in the top 10. I believe Phillips and Ray may have been top 5. And they won. They absolutely destroyed the race on the boys' side. They if you doubled their score, it was still better than the second place team.
Crazy.
So they absolutely dominated their way to a regional championship. So shout out to Fairfield Union on that. I believe that, I think it's like 4 of their top 5 are juniors.
So coming back.
Yeah,
too.
so that's a team that I don't know what their prospects are for the state, but being Uniota people, we know how Uniota does or has done. But usually when Uniota would dominate the regional, they would have a really good chance to finish in the top 5 as a team at the state level. So I would guess Fairfield Union has an excellent chance to finish in the top 5, maybe top 3, and knock Marlington out. I'm assuming they're still at the top, but I don't know for sure. It's just I know that those times I saw on Saturday, if they can repeat those again next week, they're going to have a really good chance to bring home some medals and trophies, at least individually, but more than likely as a team as well. So we'll be following along with them, and hopefully they can pull that out. Now, on the girls' side, I also don't know, how deep the qualifiers are. I thought I saw somebody from Uniota qualified, but he finished 21st, so I don't know, I don't want to say for sure on that. I know the top 10 do qualify, so that's where I just did my cutoff on this list. On the girls' side, Athens finished 2nd. They're almost all sophomores. They were led by Sophia Solosi. Going to go with that again. She won the individual race. She won it by, I believe, 17 seconds over Uniota's Cameron Walker, who finished second. Both are only sophomores. Landis Corrigan from Athens also finished 10th for the Bulldogs. Other top 10 finishers in state qualifiers were, as I mentioned, Cameron Walker earlier, Fairfield Union's Anna Conrad, she finished third, and Circleville's Maddox Bigham, who finished ninth. They'll all be representing their schools at next week's regionals as well. In Division 3, on the boys' side, White Oaks, Landon Air won the regional title. I think it's the second straight. He's only a junior. He bested Adena's Ryan Richendaler by 15 seconds. It was a little bit closer than it was a week ago, as Richendaler, a senior, has had a great season. On the girls' side, only Peebles Samantha Seas for sure qualified. She finished 10th. So I'm excited to follow that next week. That's if you've never been to the state cross country meet at Fortress Oak.
Oh, they're not at Jesse Owens?
No, it's at Fortress Obits. So it's if you're going to
Obits is around Cincinnati, isn't it?
No, it's actually by Columbus.
Oh, it is.
So if you're going to Columbus and you like go towards Easton, on the right, it's one of the first exits is Obits, and it's really cool. They actually played the state football championships there the COVID year. It only has one side of the bleachers, but it's really high. And it's got a really good view. Like if you're up top, you can see a lot of the course and stuff. And I know like the coaches run with them a little bit, and like it's crazy. Like listening to the people, like, and it's cross country is cool because like when people come into the stadium for the last time, it's the only time they'll come and run across like right in front of the crowd, because they'll run like the far side a couple times. When they come through the last time, that crowd goes nuts just for whoever's going to win. Like it doesn't matter if it's their school, because last year I saw a girl from Dayton Oakwood, just like she won by like a minute, and then the next girl was another girl from there, and she won. She was second by like 30 seconds. So I'm assuming that
they won first and second by 90 seconds.
Yeah, and it was just unbelievable. But it was just really cool listening to the crowd like explode, because with how hard that sport is, everyone, especially the people that are there, respect the heck out of it. And yeah, and after seeing it in person, I did too as well.
So we'll talk about boys soccer. We'll start with a bit of review from the district tournament. We'll start with Division 2. How about Fairfield Union knocking off a team that took them down earlier in the season?
Yeah, Fairfield Union beating Athens 3-1 in the district final. I texted Derek and Brock. I was like, man, Athens does not like playing at St. Dre's, because last year it went bad there. I believe it was 5-0. They lost to Gallia Academy when they had beat them earlier in the season, and then they had tied St. Trace this year at and like that was a game that St. Trace outplayed them. So, it was just, but still really impressive for Fairfield Union. They're up 3-0 most of the game. Ended up a late penalty kick for Athens, made it 3-1. Caleb Redding had a goal and an assist. Will Worthington and Parker Redding each had goals as well. It was the first district title for the Falcons since 2016 in boys soccer. It's just Redding, I'll get to it a little bit, but like,
Fairfield Union has just had one of the most historic seasons for one school I think I've ever seen.
Well, and then if you look at their scoring on the season, like Caleb Redding scored 27 goals, 36 assists.
That's wild.
So Cole Rowley, Caleb Smelzer, Cohen Eichhorn, and Salah Alcorn, all with 11 or more goals. Then Caleb Pack had 7. Then you get to Will Worthington, who had 5. He scores a goal in the district final. Parker Redding, only 3 goals, scores a goal in the district final. That just shows the depth of their team, that they've got these other guys that can do it as well. So you've got 6 guys with 7 or more goals, and then you're also
the guys that are sub 5 are the ones putting it in the net in a medal game.
Yeah, so huge display for Fairfield Union. They do a really good job defensively on that Athens team that put up a lot of goals this year. So really impressive for them. we'll talk a little bit more about, who they'll play in the regional here in a minute, but a couple other games, Unia Zane Trace from the other night. Like, I'm in Arnold, Maryland. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, I'm ready for bed, and I'm just following Derek's updates, which slowed down severely in the last 30 minutes. But Lucas Haynes scored in the first half to go up 1-0, and then Brock Jarrell scored on a one-on-one for the Pioneers, and then he assisted Ivan Chavez, who had a really nice backside header with about 31 minutes left to put them up. But then Liam Matthey, he scored for Uniota with about 3 minutes left to force overtime. And then in overtime, Lucas Haynes, it was kind of I think it probably was a handball, but it was with like 4 seconds left. Like it might have been able to he might have just let it go. But it was a handball called. Zane Trace did not react very well to it. And with the backup keeper in, Haynes was able to score to win 3-2. So, it's with those two being such big rivals, and it'd been so long since St. Trace beat Uniota, but they played very well in that game. I was able to watch it back on the huddle, and it was super intense. And the Matthew goal was kind of funny because it was like Lucas was maybe triple teamed, and everybody else was just watching him. And he played across in, and Matthew was able to settle it and score. But that got them to the district championship game, where they took on the heavily favored Marietta Tigers, who had beat them 7-0 during the regular season. And it was 3-3 with 8 minutes left in the game. So Marietta wins that one 4-3. Landon Costco scored from about 30 yards out with a left-footed shot. Like, I need to send you those goals from him because they were just disgusting. And then Haynes actually tied it at 1, but Cameron Davis scored less than a minute later for Marietta to make it 2-1. And then Costco scored another one this one was about 25 yards out that made it 3-1. Haynes got a penalty kick in the second half, made it 3-2. Then Johnny Wetzel, a freshman, scored to make it 3-3. But Mac Threet, the district player of the year, was able to win a more or less a 50-50 ball in the box, and was able to just touch it past the keeper for a 4-3 goal and a win. So a nice win for Marietta. Like I said last week, I felt like them away from home was a little more susceptible. Menford was tied with them for a good while, and they ended up pulling away from them in the semi in that game. So I think, when we talk about the preview, I think I like Fairfield Union.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just because we cover them, but yeah. But then moving on to Division III, I was able to get back and get there, and thankfully they pushed those games back because that meant your boy was awake, as opposed to if it was at 11, that was going to be a struggle. But South Webster and Northwest was the first one. It was 4-0. South Webster beat Northwest. It felt like Northwest had lost by a goal each time to South Webster, and I'm guessing that South Webster was more physical in those two games because Northwest came out and were the most physical team I've ever seen. Like, they got two yellow cards early for just hard fouls. And one of those really came back to bite them. Hunter Bernard scored only 4 minutes into the match on a high cross from Tyler Summer. And then 15 minutes later, they connected again. This time got a foot on it and was able to finish into the back of the net. So Bernard, only a sophomore, scored twice there. Then the biggest play of the game was a 50-50 ball. Jay Jenkins went up for Northwest and just a really hard foul. Got a second yellow card of the match with, I think it was 18 minutes left in the first half. Or no, it was about 11 minutes left in the first half. So they lost one of their top two players, one of their big playmakers, and that also put them down a man. So they're playing 10 on 11 at that point. Benaiah Andrews scored shortly after for South Webster, and then Carson Coriel scored with about 8 minutes left to really put the game away. South Webster did an outstanding job, slowing down. Caleb Lewis had 53 goals on the year, just an awesome season for him. He got think 3 or 4 shots off, but they were at really tough angles, but you could just tell how good he was. So nothing to hang their heads on for South Webster playing really well near the end of the year. And then the other district final was Wheelersburg and South Point. Wheelersburg won that one 3-0. It almost felt like after they went up 2-0, they kind of went on autopilot. But I was impressed with what I saw at South Point. You know, they didn't score, but Joey Blobon that you talked about a couple times, like that kid played his butt off the entire game. He came there close to a score. Braden Bird had a nice diving save on him. But Nick Sylvia did open the scoring early. I just wrote RIP really big. It was just like those left-footed shots that I'm going to show you later from the Marietta kid. Like this one was probably harder right-footed, like from Sylvia. It was ridiculous. Christian Dornan for South Point did a really good job in goal. There was no chance on it. It was just such a hard shot. Then Brady Wilburn scored on a loose ball in the box, and then Max Hagan scored his 52nd goal of the year on a penalty kick to push Wheelersburg to their 4th consecutive district title. South Webster was their first district title since 2019 as well. So pretty much since Wheelersburg started winning them, South Webster had not. So now they got it back.
Right. All right, so we'll look to girls soccer now.
I was going to do a little preview.
Oh, you're going to do a preview for the regional?
Little regional preview. So Wednesday we got Marietta and Fairfield Union.
Yep.
Marietta won that one 3-0 in the regular season, and it was actually at Fairfield Union. So that's where my playing away from home, that didn't work as well in that thought. But it's going to be on turf. I think Fairfield Union's playing really well. I don't know if Marietta's playing as well. Caleb Redding, I don't know if he'll have a chip on his shoulder for getting overlooked for District Player of the Year, but he had far more points than.
Oh, he didn't get District Player of the
Year. He did
not.
Mac Threat did for Marietta, who had a great year. But which I believe, let me see real quick. I think it was 33 goals and 4 assists.
33 goals and 4 assists over 23 goals and 33 assists.
No, 33 goals and 4 assists, and Reading had 27 goals and 36 assists. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, I think the assists were probably overlooked there. Yeah. So,
what was the point differential between those two?
So that's 90 to 70.
I mean, what are we doing?
Right.
Like, what are we doing? Yeah. That makes no sense.
Yeah. It's
whatever.
Yeah, I guess that was the 1 seed over the 3, I guess, in that way, but still. I mean,
if it's just going to be best player from the highest seed every year, then
right. And Lucas Haynes, who probably isn't in that conversation for this year, hit 76 points. He had more goals than 3.
That makes no sense. Reading got robbed.
Yeah, Reading got robbed. Hashtag Reading got robbed.
No, literally.
So Caleb Reading and Fairfield Union have been playing really well. I think their defense has been outstanding, especially late in the year. I think they played a little tougher schedule. I'm going to take them to get to the regional final. I think that's going to be a really tight game. Then in Division 3, Wheelersburg and South Webster. Wheelersburg beat them 2-1 early in the year, and then 6-0 at Wheelersburg, and that was the Max Hagen's night where he had the 5 goals, and which is unbelievable. But as Coach John Eastep for Wheelersburg said, he said, they're a different team than the last time we played them. And he said, we are too. But with South Webster, their 3 goal scorers in that district championship game were all sophomores. They only have 3 seniors. They're a very sophomore-heavy team. They figured out their goalkeeping situation. They gave up a little bit on the field with Sam Beauregard is now playing goalie instead of in the midfield, but he did a really good job on Saturday. I think South Webster has done a really good job of adjusting things. And then also with Wheelersburg, they're still getting back some injuries. Connor Eastep is out. So that's a huge hole for them. But I liked what I saw. Once they got their 2 goals, and they were just like, if we get another goal, great. But Max is going to play a little more midfield in that way. So I think it's going to be a really good matchup. I hope that game gets moved away from Athens. I hope they switch the locations of those 2 games, just because Marietta and Fairfield Union makes more sense at Athens than at Chillicothe, and Wheelersburg South Webster makes more sense at like Northwest than it does at Athens. So, see, I'm covering the game, but I didn't suggest Chillicothe on that. Like I could have, but or even Jackson again, But either way, I think that's going to be a really good game. I do think that South Webster might have a little momentum on their side just for how well they've been playing lately.
Right.
But Wheelersburg, they're still
Wheelersburg.
yeah, to beat the man, you got to beat the man. So I think South Webster will be the team to beat for sure next year. But I think right now it still is Wheelersburg. But I think it's going to be a really good game.
All right, so we'll look now to girls soccer, same format. We'll just review both district games, and then we'll, I'm not sure if we'll do a little regional preview for this one.
Well, this will be more of a regional preview than review on this because the Division II district games weren't as close. Fairfield Union, they won 4-0 in theirs over Sheridan with Maddie Mitchell had a hat trick in the district final.
She's a freshman, isn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once again, they've had a ridiculous school year, and I think it's just going to continue. And then for Marietta, they won 2-0 over Jackson, who had a really good season. But on the Division III side, Lynchburg beat North Adams 2-0. Aubrey Slack scored 2 goals. It's their 5th straight district championship for the Mustangs. I believe Derek told me it was their 10th in 11 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
Like, how are you just not bad at some point?
At least, or have just a couple down years. I mean, 10 and 11.
Yeah, that's insane. So, really good showing for Lynchburg in that. North Adams had beaten, I'm trying to think of who it was. Wheelersburg 1-0. Kenley Jones scored in that game. And I guarantee that wouldn't have happened if I was there. Because I think I told you that where she just didn't score a lot whenever I was at those games. But yeah, that'll be, so a good run for North Adams, kind of a bounce back after a little lull in the middle of the season for them. I look for them to have a really good basketball season for them. Lynchburg Clay, we'll talk about them here in a minute when we get to the District 3 preview, but or Division 3, not District 3. But and then in the other game was Fairfield beat Menford 2-1 in overtime for their first ever district championship.
Here we go.
Yeah, Kennedy Zink scored both goals for the Lions, including the game winner 4 minutes into overtime. I think it was a controversial goal. I know that she said in the interview she thought she was offsides, but was not called. So, hey, you play through the whistle. Zink puts it in for the Lions, and they roar their way to a district title. Thank you for that eye roll. And then I'll just jump into that one. So Fairfield and Lynchburg Clay. So we talked about it a little bit earlier in the season, and, it was not much of a game. Lynchburg won 5-1. Now, here comes your stat that I told you I had one for you.
Ready.
Lynchburg with 12 shutouts on the year. 9 were in their last 10 games dating back to September 25th. They've given up 1 goal in the last 10 games, and it was to Fairfield. All you got to do is get one. But, they're led by Jade Massey. She scored 40 goals in the year, district player of the year.
Yeah, stepped up.
Yeah, stepped up big time with losing a couple of big time players from last year, and it's just a really good overall team. But at the same time, so is Fairfield. Fairfield having one of their better years ever. Obviously, winning their first ever district. They've only given up 14 goals in the year. They have 11 shutouts. They are led by the senior duo of Faith Donnelly with 34 goals, 15 assists, and Kennedy Zink with 32 goals on the season. And obviously the game winner the other night. They've played really good defense. The 5 goals was clearly a season high given up for them in that game against Lynchburg Clay. So I'm assuming they'll make some changes and some adjustments, but your boy will be there giving updates on that game, which I believe this will come out on Tuesday. So that'll be tonight. And then going to Division 2, Fairfield Union against Marietta. They did not play earlier in the year, so so they had a district final in volleyball. between those two.
Yeah.
And then they got a
boys and
regional
girls.
semi in boys and girls soccer. So pretty good seasons for those two schools overall. But Rachel Worthman, Maddie Mitchell, Kyla Gasser, and Peyton Hughes, all with 10-plus goals for the Falcons on the year. They have 14 shutouts and have only given up 9 goals in 20 matches. Like, that's pretty insane. Marietta's played really good defense as well. They have 10 shutouts, 15 goals allowed in 19 games. I'm assuming, I think it's safe to assume. I'm not going to assume, I'm assuming that's going to be a low scoring game. I would put that at like 1.5 on the over under, but I think that'll be a really good game. I think Fairfield Union may be slightly favored in that one as well, but they are young, but man, they're good. That's just
Right. All right, so we'll jump into football now, talk a little bit at Week 11, and then preview a little bit of what we have remaining heading into Week 12. So we'll start off with one of the bigger upsets we've had this year, Portsmouth and Fairland, a rematch of Week 8's OVC League meeting between the two, and really back in Week 8, that was a game that Portsmouth led 19-14 at halftime, so that was kind of the first flag that's like, okay, Portsmouth may have found something out here, and then obviously, Week 9, they have the second half come from behind win against South Point. And then even in Week 10, although you lose 21-6, it's to Ironton. And it's like, we don't know if maybe Ironton, like, called the dogs off at the end or whatever. But when you just look at the box score, it's like 21-6 against Ironton isn't that bad. I mean, that's a team that had been scoring a lot more than 21 points per game over the course of the season. But in that Week 8 game, obviously a big second half for Fairland. They were able to end up winning the game 43-27. So that takes us to Week 11. Now, I don't know the exact points that Fairland was favored, but I would have to assume they were like a 15-point favorite over Fairland. It was the exact same circumstances. It was another home game, same game down in Proctorville, and Portsmouth wins it 50-38, a monster game from Chase Highland, 44 carries, 359 yards.
favored by 22.
4 touchdowns, 22 points, which, I mean, that might be a little high, especially considering they won the last game by
16.
By 16, and even in this game, it was kind of the exact opposite. As early in the third quarter, Fairland led by 2 scores, 32-18. So it was just the opposite team making a big second half comeback. And also Cam Williams, who is one of the more impressive freshmen. And that's the thing, he's a freshman and he's doing what he's doing.
Well, like, they're big playmakers on offense are all going to be back.
Right. Yeah. You bring back Highland, who's a junior. You bring back Cam Williams, who had 112 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. He reminds me, like, when I watch him play, like, obviously, if you've seen him, he's a bit – now, he is a freshman, but he's a bit undersized. I think at the program he's 5'6" or 7", like 125, 130. Now, he's only going to get bigger, obviously. Now, how much bigger, I don't know.
Because I think JT's only like 5'10"-ish.
Right.
So, but, I mean, still 5'10" compared to
a lot
5'7". Yeah.
Right. But when you just watch him play, at least for me, you kind of get like a Kyler Murray type look. And he's one of the shiftier guys. And I saw some highlights from that game, and he's just making dudes miss. I mean, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. He nearly averaged, I think that would be around 8 yards per carry, whatever 112 divided by 14 is. But a monster game from him. The Trojans will now head to Ed Miller Stadium this Friday to take on Wheelersburg. We were thinking we might have one of the best OVC teams taking on one of the best SOC2 teams, but Trojans looking to be the better OVC team there in that matchup. And now we'll get a little 15 on, I think, 7 is what Wheelers, 7 or 8 is what.
Yeah, this is one of those like second round NCAA matchups that you don't ever write in on your bracket. But yeah, so that'll be I'm sure Wheelersburg is probably slightly happy. But man, that I think it's Wheelersburg. They're just like, oh, we'll play whoever, but they get to play at home is the big thing for them. So the fact they get to have the home game is nice for them for sure. Really impressed with Portsmouth. I know we covered them twice. I liked what I saw both times. Technically, both beat 2 playoff teams in those games.
Right. Yeah. Beat Valley, who snuck in as a 14 seed, I think it was, and then beat South Point, who I think was 13, but still. I mean, so still beat team. They had to win those games to get into the playoffs, and really there for a second. After I think it who beat Menford? After Valley beat Menford, it really didn't look like Portsmouth was even going to
Yeah.
make the playoffs there for because I know after they beat South Point, it was like, oh, they got like a 90%
yeah.
chance or whatever, and then it was like
It dropped
they
like
may not-
immediately. Yeah.
they may not make the playoffs now, and then they make it and they pick up, I think, the biggest upset win in our coverage area in week 11.
Yeah, it was for teams winning in our coverage area
Right.
for that. But yeah, so it's a
Nice.
yeah. But you know, it's a team that when we went into the season, I remember hearing people down at Portsmouth were like, man, they might win 4 games, might win 5. And now, I mean, you're at what, 6 wins and a playoff win.
You clinched a non-losing season, which I think a lot of people in Portsmouth would have said, you're crazy.
Yeah,
at the
with how much they
beginning of the
lost last year, to not, to at least finish 500 has got to really make the people proud over there in Portsmouth. And man, those guys play super hard. I really like watching them. I'm excited to get down there and watch them again next year.
And then one other game we're going to talk about, another upset win. Now, not as wide between the seedings. It was just 8-9. But Miami Trace and Hamilton Township, the Panthers 55-34 over Hamilton Township. The Panthers will now move on to play Bishop Watterson, which is going to be a tough matchup. But, I mean, Miami Trace, at least for me, has been one of the more unpredictable teams this year. And I think that's what makes them so intriguing. It's just like you never know what you're going to get. But a big game from Asher LeBeau. He was over 300 rushing yards with 4 touchdowns. Julian Baker also added a rushing touchdown. And then Trey Robinette had a rushing touchdown along with 2 passing touchdowns. Both of those were to Garrett Guest. So I'm sure they're thrilled to have him back. I think his first game back was last week, week 10. So I don't know how many weeks he was out. I think it was maybe 2 or 3. But I mean, anytime you can get a player to his caliber back, you're going to benefit a lot.
Yeah, so they were 15-point underdogs going into that game. They'll be 33-point underdogs with Watterson. But, I mean, Watterson lost to DeSales, who, DeSales is very good still, but is one of their worst teams they've had in a long time. So kind of never know on that. But for Miami Trace, just, really didn't expect this. After the season Hamilton Township had and kind of the up and down nature that Miami Trace had. But I feel like they can really step up to whatever level they need. I'm going to say they play to the level of their competition.
Well, yeah, from
maybe outside of the Jackson game where they got blown out of that game, but their other games.
Right, and Guest wasn't there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can use that however you want, but anytime you lose, one of your better playmakers, it's not, your offense isn't going to flow as smoothly.
Yeah, so just a really impressive win for them, and good luck against my family school.
There we go.
Yeah.
I will say from the perspective of a spectator, Miami Trace was probably the hardest team to analyze. Are they to compare them to other, because you look at a matchup like Logan Elm in week 3 and you lose by 3 scores, and then you play a team that is going to get confusing, but you play a team in Hamilton Township who beat Bloom-Carroll, who pretty much ran Logan Elm out of the field.
Right.
And I mean, and obviously Logan Elm beat Hamilton Town. The MSL was the MSL, and then the FAC besides Jackson were just complete messes. They were just hard to get a grasp on. But a big win for the Panthers. I think now they've won 2 straight. And so that's what I'm kind of getting at is you have a 14-3 loss to Hillsborough, and then you take down Courthouse in a rivalry game, and then you beat Hamilton Township the next week, and even Hillsborough, who I think was a double-digit point favorite over McLean in their Week 10 matchup. I mean, the FAC was just tough to get
outside of Jackson, it was wild because you just never knew what you're going to get week to week, and I feel like that was a lot of maybe outside of the top teams in our coverage area. I feel like that was a lot of that this year. A lot of
unpredictability.
Yeah, a lot of unpredictability. Not fantastic defense, but kind of going elsewhere. Looking at Zane Trace with a 24-14 win over Madison out of Middletown. Paint Valley won 37-21 or 23. Over Rockford Parkway, who came in with 2 wins, but still was coming out of that MAC, is a really tough team. Jackson with a pretty easy win. Wheelersburg with a pretty easy win.
Gallia
over Vinton County. Eastern,
over Coldwater.
Yeah. No.
It wasn't
Shady
Coldwater? Oh, Shady Side.
Yeah.
Shady Side.
No, if they beat Coldwater, then they're state champs. But because that'll be a good bit later. But yeah, so we had some teams show out, and Notre Dame played really well this week.
That was Bealsville, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or however you pronounce it, Bellsville.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up the East score real quick because I'm gonna laugh at it.
Eastern?
No, East.
Oh, Sodaville East.
Yeah, did you see it?
I did not know, honestly. I wasn't sure if they made the playoffs or not, because I don't know if we've talked. The SOC one was sort of a wasteland a bit for us this year, outside of Eastern and Notre Dame. I think South Gallia was in there as well.
South Gallia was.
They were given updates. I think they ended up losing.
Yeah, they
They
lost.
played Bel Air. Because they were given updates while we were at Gallia, who
was yelling. They lost to Monroe Central 31-21. South Gallia did. But that was a game they were winning for a little bit of the game. But let me find this East score. East lost to Fairfield Christian Academy 61-54.
wow. That's
Defense optional. So Hannibal River and Fairfield Christian Academy play this week. If you're over there, go watch that game because that's going to be some points. Because Fairfield Christian Academy this year, 42-45, but they also gave 43 in that game. That was the Adena game.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
Yeah, they lost to Danville 41-7. Then they won 17-14. Ho-hum. Then they won 50-21. Then they gave 36 the next week. Then they won 61-58. They won a game.
Who was that against?
Bishop Rosecrans. Yeah, so, I mean, that team's going to score or give up a lot of points, one of the two. So,
gosh.
Yeah, so that's...
Big 12.
Yeah.
That's all it is, Big 12.
So, yeah, there's a lot of teams in our area were able to successfully navigate week one of the playoffs. And, while we may not go in depth on them too much here, but, shout out to them. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about your win again in week 12 coming up.
Right.
It's always fun to be able to get to that next level. Obviously there were some teams that did fall, like we'll just say Uniota, like fell short of where they're hoping to get, but gold ball season, you're still pretty happy with that. At some point you're hoping to take that next step forward. McLean made it to the playoffs.
Things like Logan Elm as
well.
well.
Logan Elm also got a win, won their league as well, also finished 9-1, won their league for the first time in a long time, but they end up losing in the first round of the playoffs. So, I mean, obviously...
Or even like Vinton County.
Vinton County, another one went 9-1.
First DVC title since 99, I think. So,
so those are three teams right there that
won their leagues.
They
9-1.
lost their first playoff game, and none of them were really particularly close. So a lot of people are probably going to think that's disappointing, which it is, that one game, but you still got to look at the big picture on the season. As this is a big time positive season. And then you look at like a school like Valley, one like South Point, who maybe snuck, kind of came out of nowhere to make the playoffs, that teams weren't expected. And yes, they lost in round one, but at the same time, you get that extra week of practice, just get yourself better moving forward as well. So playoffs are a good thing. I know some people are talking about the expansion, just too many teams, but
when you look at a game like Portsmouth and Fairland,
right,
and it's like, that's, like, obviously you're not going to have lower seeds winning a lot.
Yeah.
But
I think it was 3 times 15s won this year.
Well, I mean, just look
last
at any
year,
time
last year a 16 won. So, I mean,
you just have to look at any time a team under 8 wins, and it's like, this is why you at least play the game. And it also, like you said, it gives a team with 16, it gives teams the opportunity to host 2 playoff games, or even a team that's outside the top 4 a chance to host, where if it was 8, if you're outside the top 4, you're not going to host at all. So it gives that 5 through 8 the opportunity, like for Paint Valley, for example, right? You're going to get to host in week 1, which as a 6 seed, I think they are with the 8-team format, you would have been on the road the first week anyway. So it opens more availability for these teams that don't finish in the top 4 every year.
Yeah, but also take the ticket prices down. ticket prices got to go down because, I mean, that's it. Like, Vinton County had a great crowd the other night, but I thought there's a lot of holes on that Gallia Academy side. There are a lot of people like around the fence line and everything.
I got bad,
But-
in the end zone, and like you would have to have been to Gallia or you're just familiar with the landscape, but like that little house in the end zone with the scoreboard with the patio deck, like they're having just a party over that.
Yeah.
I bet that place was going crazy during the game.
Yeah, so
At least
I mean,
that's what it looked like.
and that's one of the things is like we weren't going to necessarily be able to get down there. So we were able to get down there and see that, but once again, take the prices down. Like prices shouldn't double going into the playoffs. Like I get it for the state because you're playing at the big venues and whatnot, but it's
For a home, for a non-neutral site game, like if you go to a neutral site, then like
right because
okay,
you got to pay for that. But
like if it's just the higher seed hosting, it's like, come on,
yeah, like
we're just robbing people.
right.
At this point
And I know that was part of the reason why a lot of people were annoyed with them adding the extra round was it's just getting more money, which it is because they jumped the prices up so much too. And you still have to look at people. Like these are still families that want to go to these games, and like that's got to be it. There's got to be something that can be done about that because
money will do a lot of things. Keep you from letting some people come to your games to broadcast them and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's true. They love money. So
all right,
yeah,
so
let's get some previews.
Yeah, we'll talk about 4 of our matchups. We tried to pick teams or matchups, which is kind of what we did last week, where we pick matchups where we have 2 area teams, and that's the case for the first one with Portsmouth and Wheelersburg. We kind of talked about it when we were talking about that upset for Portsmouth over Fairland, but you look at a game like this at face value, and it's like Portsmouth you wouldn't think they would be able to compete, but it's like they just knocked off the 2 seed in Fairland, and I mean, you're going to be at Ed Miller Stadium, so it's going to be tough. Wheelersburg has, since that loss to Harvest Prep, or not Harvest Prep.
It was.
Oh, it was. I get Harvest Prep and Bishop Hartley confused all the time. But after the loss to Harvest Prep, they've been rolling, so you're kind of catching them at not the greatest time. They've seemed to sort of figured it out, but I think if Portsmouth can really get Highland going and if they can really get Williams going. Now, I think for Wheelersburg, they're probably going to focus on stopping the run. And I think I haven't seen them in person, but I'm assuming up front, Wheelersburg is probably massive. So, really staying in the pocket and throwing might be difficult for somebody the size of Cam Williams. So I'm assuming that's something they'll work on a little bit in practice this week. But I'm interested to see how Portsmouth does against this Wheelersburg team.
Yeah, and then, Portsmouth is the type of team that when they get ahead, they're really hard to come back on because of how well they run the ball. So that's got to be something they got to try to focus on, get out early if they can. For Wheelersburg, it's just kind of do the same thing you've been doing. They've been rolling the last, like you mentioned, since that Harvest Prep game. That's why you play that really tough non-league schedule. Get yourself ready, get yourself going for the playoffs. And it seems like they use that bye week where not playing Oak Hill actually kind of to perfection as they've just been annihilating teams since then. So I think Wheelersburg's the heavy favorite in this, but Portsmouth was also a heavy underdog against
22-point dog.
Yeah, against Fairland. So you can never count out the Trojans. It's a pretty well coached team, and they got some dogs over there that can really really make some stuff happen. So I think that one will be a fun game to watch at Ed Miller Stadium.
We never did get that Wheelersburg bobblehead.
No, I should have talked to Coach Estep the other day.
I wonder if they still have some lying around. What did you say it was, like a fundraiser?
It was for like a band trip. Yeah,
man. I mean, even if it was just like, I'm assuming it was like a pirate or something.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
That'd be cool to have on the table.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty sweet. All right. So one other game we'll talk about is Paint Valley and Cincinnati Country Day.
The Nighthawks.
I think I've only seen them play in that Winter Hoops Classic over at Eastern Brown last year. I haven't seen them playing football yet, so I'm not sure what to expect as Paint Valley makes the trip down there.
Yeah, the Nighthawks. Formerly the Indians, but now the Nighthawks. The Nighthawks play some defense.
Yeah?
Yeah. They've given up 33 points this year. 13 of which came last week in a 63-13 win. Now, according to Fantastic 50, they've played the 104th out of 106th best or worst schedule.
Easiest.
Yeah, they've played one of the easiest schedules in Division
Easiest.
6. Yeah, third easiest schedule. But that defense seemed like, I mean, yeah, they're not playing great teams, but
I feel like the schedule thing can only be used so much.
Right.
Like, I mean,
you're just not giving up points. They gave up 6, 6, 8 in their 3 games they gave up points in during the regular season. So, I mean, they're doing who's on their schedule. They're blowing them out. I believe they've all but one game has ended with a running clock. So that's pretty impressive for them. I do think where Paint Valley has played a little tougher schedule, obviously with West Jefferson being probably the most impressive in that. But, it's not like, SBC guy here, not like the SBC is a murderer's row of football. So, that part of it, is maybe a little advantage for Paint Valley. I'm sure that like West Jefferson, Uniota, and probably Zane Trace are stronger than anybody that Cincinnati Country Day has played this year. They are led by SVC Defensive Back of the Year, Braylon Robertson. I had to look it up to see if I could talk about it on this one because it gets released tomorrow or on Tuesday. Yeah. And then Peyton Bell was co-offensive lineman of the year for the Bearcats as well. So they got some guys that can do it. Preston Faubers had a nice season for them. Carson Free just broke a 20-year-old record for career pass or receiving yards. He's over like 2,100 for his career. He's only a junior. So he broke Chris Young, who was the Division 5 Defensive Player of the Year in the state in 2002. Broke his receiving record. He's like 4 inches shorter than Chris was. But yeah, I think, Fantastic 50 has Paint Valley as a 1-point favorite on the road at Country Day. I'm assuming Country Day probably won't have a real big home field advantage in that one. So it'd be nice if, Paint Valley can get some fans down there and maybe earn their way into week 13.
And then we'll talk about 2 more games before we wrap it up. Bloom-Carroll at Jackson, which I think could be one of the better games we've seen this year. 2 powerhouses, one from the MSL, one from the FAC, coming together in week 12. Would have loved to get down there, but things happen.
Things happen for sure.
Unable to, although we were given the initial green. But
I think it should
be a great game.
The athletics people wanted us there,
right?
So
fiscal may not have agreed
might not have made as much sense for them, but right now Fantastic 50 has Bloom-Carroll as a 2-point favorite in that one on the road. I would have guessed this was probably a toss up on that.
I was a pick 'em.
Yeah, so they may, I don't know, that Jackson's mean. And I was going to say, I think that might be a slight advantage for them. But, at the same time, these are going to be 2 mean teams that are going to hit. And it's going to be, that should be a really fun game to get to.
Right. I mean, you have Thanavong on one side and the Wolford brothers on the other. I think they were both first team all FAC. I mean, we saw what Bloom-Carroll could do on the ground with Armand Trout, who I don't remember the number, but was over 300 yards, set the new single game rushing record for them. And I think Bloom-Carroll, I forget the kid's name, but it was their left or right tackle was committed to Purdue. I think his last name was Gall or Ball.
I think it's Ball.
Ball. I can't remember his first name, but they've got a D1. Jaden Ball. Yeah, they have a Division I offensive lineman, so the star power is.
And then I know you mentioned him. Armand Trout's going to Army. He's going to go play at Army. So, and then you got Kent State for Walford. So it's going to be some star power on the field that night. Yeah,
I mean, I'm assuming Brock will be down there for that one. So stay tuned for that. Don't know if there will be any broadcasts or not.
I think they have the student broadcast out of Jackson.
I know. Well, so I know they have it, but I don't know if it'll be running or not.
Right.
But if it is, make sure to check that game out because that, in my opinion, in our coverage area, that's probably the game of the week. I haven't seen what Gridiron Glory's put out.
Right.
If that's not their game of the week, then I don't know what the standards are for game of the
Right.
week, because that game just when I saw it on the schedule, it caught my eye. So
Yeah,
then
for sure.
One last game we'll talk about, and as of now, it looks like this is where we'll be stationed up at this Friday. Waterford at Eastern in Week 12. TVC Hawken taking on SOC 1.
Yeah, so Eastern 11-0. They had never had a 10-win season. I don't think they had a 9-win season.
Wow, have they even been a program?
They have not been a program for 10 years.
I was going to say they have more wins this season than years their program.
Yeah,
has been
I
around,
believe this is their 9th year.
which says a lot.
Yeah, so
Now, is it their 9th year overall, or did they skip a few years?
I think it's their 9th year overall. I think that they had I think they probably played like JV to start and kind of work their way up.
So, do you know how old is it? The school's relatively old, isn't it?
Yeah, school's old.
So they just didn't have football.
They just didn't have football. Where like I'll use like a White Oak. White Oak's had soccer a few different times for like a year at a time.
They don't do football.
But they don't
Well,
do
they're
football.
Jack.
Yeah. So I don't really know.
I've got some Waterford stuff. So
You got some Waterford stuff?
not a lot. Kind of just some like cheeky stuff, but it's something to think about. So obviously, it's been 11 weeks so far. They've only been favored 5 times, right? So, and they've won every one of those games. Obviously, winning 2 games that they weren't favored in. But what I will say is that those 5 games that they were favored by however many points it is, they've only covered the spread once. So take that how you want. They're 7-4. Like I said, through 11 weeks, only been favored 5 times. They have upset wins over Shenandoah, Trimble. And those are the 2. Yeah. I was looking for more. I knew I said 2, but the one that jumps out to me a little bit is like the win over Southern Racine. It's 49-7, a game that a team that Eastern only beat, what was it, like 50-49?
Yep.
So defensively, maybe some question marks there for Eastern.
But I think they're healthier now.
But even like last week for Waterford, a win over Miller, they're favored by 31, and they win by they win by 23, so it's only an 8-point difference. But you know they're favored by 12 coming into this week, 74% chance to win. But you know, I don't think it's possible to be a bad team and go 11-0. Right. So I mean, we'll see.
I think for Waterford they're a little more battle tested than Eastern, but it's
and for Waterford so far 0-1 this season against teams named Eastern.
Right.
So
yeah, only lost by a point, but they still lost.
That's like one of the first times I think I've seen Drew Paster's Fantastic 50
be
spot
exactly
on.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, they were Eastern Reedsville was a 1-point favorite, and they won 21-20. That was a failed 2-point conversion.
Yeah. So by the way, I'm gonna just talk about Trimble really quick. They beat Marion Elgin 37-6 as a 4-point favorite last week on the road. So the TVC Hockey, I think, is
Interesting.
Been pretty good so far this year. This will be a tough game for Eastern, but I like what Coach Tomlinson has done there with that program. I mean, obviously,
and
you don't get to where you're at without being a well-ran program.
And you're working with a limited amount of guys.
Yeah, I think it was like 24.
You're right. Like, you're not going to have as many guys coming out as you'll have at, a Division III. Like, Jackson probably has like 60 dudes on the roster. So it's a different atmosphere in Division 7.
Yeah, for sure. And, so really impressed with what Eastern's been able to do this year. And be nice to see, like you said, Waterford hadn't really covered much. So might as well not cover this one, and
if
they
you're
can
betting
lose.
on it, take Eastern to cover the 12. Eastern plus 12.
Yeah, So let's get down to Beaver.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I know it's week 12, so it may not be as plentiful as it has been. Any games not to watch this week from any other areas? I feel like there might be one laying out there. I haven't looked. I wondered. I was curious if you had.
I had not so far, but I think.
You have one in mind?
The one I had in mind is not one. It's actually a little closer than I thought it would be.
What was it?
Northmore and Nelsonville, even though it wasn't outside. I think it was like a 19. They only have Sheridan over Gaia by 9. I think I could probably find one.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a lot harder at this time of the year because there's no pretenders usually at this point in the season. And even if we were to do an episode next week, they're definitely probably not going to be one because it's week 13 and you're working with teams that have won 2 playoff games. So it would definitely get tough at that point. But I was just curious to see if we had any just massive spreads coming into week 12.
I'm going to look at Marion Local because I bet they have one.
I would.
Oh, don't watch Cedarville at Marion Local. 46.
Oh my gosh.
Cedarville, you make the second round. Congratulations. Now you're going to go to Marion Local and probably lose by 50. I mean, they were 49-point favorites last week and won by 63. So, yeah, they've played the toughest schedule in Division 7.
And they haven't lost, have they?
No, they're ranked number 12 of the entire state.
Just all divisions?
All divisions. They're a team I'd like to see their roster. I bet every boy in their school plays.
Probably, because you probably have dudes going there that are literally just going there to play.
Yeah.
If you're like, nobody goes there just because they're in the area. Like, you go there to play football. Their open enrollment is probably nasty.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't even know where Marion is. That Marion, like Marion, Ohio?
No, it is. Just a second. It's funny.
The town name?
Yeah, I think it's Maria Stein. Look up Maria Stein.
Oh, Maria Stein.
Yeah.
Maria Stein, we'll just say to Chillicothe.
Solid 3, right?
215.
That's not bad.
Nope, looks like it's up by the Indiana border, so it's right there.
All right, so I'm just going to rattle off some stuff real quick.
All right, I'm listening. Marion
so
local time.
11-0
Yep.
this year, obviously. 16-0, 16-0, 9-1.
Is that the COVID year?
That was the COVID year. They lost to eventual state champion New Bremen.
Was that in the playoffs, I'm assuming?
That was the regional
Well, it would
final.
have had to have been if that was their only loss.
Yeah, they beat New Bremen earlier in the year too. 13-2. They won the championship that year. 13-2. They lost to Kirkland that year. Then they went 15-0, 14-1, which
they've
won.
won the state title the last 2 years.
Yeah, and a lot.
Well, I just meant like in a row.
Yeah, it's.
Has it more than 2 in a row?
No, but.
Well, no, I mean, I got you. They've won way more than 2 in the last like 10 years, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna like.
What is their mascot?
The Flyers.
Flyers.
So St. Henry is a school I'll use as an example. St. Henry since 2008 is 1-17 against Marion Local. They're 84 and 63 besides playing them, or 61 against everybody else. So like really good against everybody else, but not so much against the Flyers.
Kind of makes sense that they're not too far away from Dayton.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of like Nelsonville.
Mm-hmm.
Nelsonville's a lot further than an hour away from Columbus, but similar.
Yeah, so
Similar mascot.
don't watch that. Just skip that one.
Just don't watch Marion Local until there's
the
about
final.
4 teams left because they're running a check over in Division 7. Who knows? Maybe one of our area, Notre Dame, Eastern, somebody might make it that far.
Hey, I would take a beating in the state.
Hey, I mean, you get. Does football hand out medals for regional titles?
I don't know.
I'm
I'm not sure.
I feel like
they don't.
I don't either. I don't think so. I mean, you'd have. Well, for D7, it wouldn't really matter, but like D3, you'd have to print off about 70 medals.
Yeah.
Because you'd probably give them to cheerleaders. Do they get medals? I don't think they do in basketball, so I don't know if they would get them in football. But obviously, for a D7, like you probably only have to do like 30 or whatever. But D3, 2, and 1, you're looking at 60 to 70, maybe even 80 for some Division 1 teams. So, yeah, I think we'll just about do it. I think we kept the streak alive for games to watch. We might just piggyback on.
Oh, I'm gonna have fun with that in
local.
basketball. Basketball, I'm gonna have a great time with that. Like
Every week.
every week, I'm just gonna find something that's horrible.
Yeah, we'll find. I'm sure there's some great ones up
Union of
north
girls
or-
against anybody.
That is true. We gotta keep it out of the coverage area.
I know.
Although
but I'm
if
just
they are
saying.
playing somebody out of the coverage area,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, but those are the ones that are going to be probably
the better ones. Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be. Make sure you get out and watch some games this week. Follow our live streams. Follow our socials for the updates on these regional games.
I was gonna say by the time the next episode comes out, only thing that's gonna be left is the state tournament because the regional will be all wrapped up because the semifinals and finals are played in between now and probably next Tuesday is when the next episode would come out, and then really all we'll have to talk about is any state-bound teams or any teams still going in week 13.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably gonna be it for the fall next week.
Yeah.
Because after that, then it would be trying to fill an episode talking about
Like
2 to 3 teams. Yeah.
yeah. Which I mean,
Could be done, but
I would say we could potentially squeeze out maybe like next week could be one about like the teams that are left, and then maybe even one after that could sort of be like a review of maybe who's been the best this year. Just whatever, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So, so just check out our socials, and I'll be in the state for at least another 10 days.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.